may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay guys, this video we are going to be talking about the last of the running back twos. If you were unable to watch the first three, we break down our running back rankings 1 through 18. And generally, I've been wanting to dive a little bit deeper into these running backs rather than just covering them for only 30 seconds or so. So we've been breaking it down to a multiple part series. What I should actually do now that I say this out loud is I should probably make it a playlist on YouTube. That way you can watch them in order. But in case you were unable to watch the first three videos and you want to hear the in-depth analysis behind the rankings for the top 18 guys, pause it if you don't want to be spoiled, because I'm just going to go through right now and give y'all a quick update on the running backs that were ranked previously. And yes, guys, this is going to be in order, but I'm not going to be talking about the order right now and the reasonings behind it. Already did that. I just want to let y'all know who you can expect to not hear in this video so everyone's on the same page. So the guys that have already been ranked: Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Zeke, Austin Eckler, Cam Akers, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, and Antonio Gibson. So I know y'all probably hear a name or two that I did not say on that list going, oh my God, Mason, how did you leave him off? And yeah, that's why we are going to be talking about them now, so we can dive into depth. That way I can give you my explanation on maybe having guys a little bit lower than consensus, but there's reasoning behind every single ranking. So let's dive into it right after y'all go down there, drop that like. Not even going to say to subscribe to the channel because I know everybody's already subscribed. But also leave a comment telling me why I am stupid. Leave a comment telling me what I got wrong, because your opinion is worth just as much as mine. So, of course, I am going to want to hear yours. Okay, so our first running back that we are going to be talking about in this video is going to be our running back 19. And I know a lot of people want to have him higher than this. And this is going to be James Robinson. Okay, so I will say that James Robinson is easily going to be the biggest mover on this list by the time that you're watching this now to the beginning of the season. Because by the time we get to the beginning of the season, we are going to know exactly what the Jacksonville Jaguars decided to do at the running back position. And no, I am not expecting the Jaguars to go out there and to give the bag to Aaron Jones. I'm not expecting the Jaguars to go out there and just go all out for a running back at the very top of the NFL draft in a Travis Etienne and a Najee Harris, just because James Robinson looks legit. James Robinson looks like the Jacksonville Jaguars just possibly had the best undrafted free agent from the 2020 draft class. And yeah, I'm excited. I will say last time that we saw a free agent running back pop like this, an undrafted free agent running back pop like this, was Phillip Lindsay. And if y'all been following the channel for a while, y'all know I hated Phillip Lindsay in Dynasty. After his rookie season, I was coming out here and saying, oh my God, how are y'all valuing this running back as a high first round pick? I am selling everywhere I can. And with James Robinson, I can't say that. James Robinson looks legit. James Robinson looks like he is, I don't want to say the next Arian Foster, because that is so strong of an outlier that it would just be reckless for me to go there. But he looks like a 3-down running back that can catch passes, and we already saw his ability to go out there and handle 30 touches a game. Now, what if I tell you that this offense is going to go from Gardner Minshew to Trevor Lawrence? So yeah, that is all exciting. That is fantastic for James Robinson. But what we have to acknowledge is we have to acknowledge the fact that the Jacksonville Jaguars have a ridiculous amount of draft capital in 2021. We know that they were pretty much selling every veteran player that they had last offseason so they could stack up for future draft classes. And because they don't have a lot of veteran contracts on the books, the Jacksonville Jaguars also are close to the top of the NFL in cap space. So I think the Jags are a sneaky team to maybe not spend a ton of money on an Aaron Jones because James Robinson is so talented. But we have to understand that if you're a front office, you're not having James Robinson on your fantasy team. You're not going, how do we construct this roster to make sure that James Robinson is going to continue to see 25 touches a game, to continue to be one of the premier running backs at the NFL level, and to continue to just carry our offense on his back? What your question is how do we put up the most amount of points? And how you put up the most amount of points is you invest a little bit into wide receiver, you bring in, at the very minimum, a secondary running back just in case James Robinson got injured, because right now if Robinson gets injured, this Jags team has nobody, literally nobody. Y'all know that last offseason I was a fan of Raquel Armstead, and that clearly did not work out. But I think we could see this team be a sneaky team to possibly land someone like Kenyan Drake, someone that is not going to command a ton of money, and they go, you know what? Let's not use James Robinson on 90% of the team snaps. Let's not use him like he's Christian McCaffrey. Let's try to give him 70% of the team snaps. Let's try to bring someone else in to give him a little bit of a breather. That way we don't run him into the ground, and we can maybe make a run at making the playoffs as early as Trevor Lawrence's first season, just because we know that Trevor Lawrence is going to make an immediate impact for this offense. So I'll say Robinson, I love the player. I'm one of the very few undrafted free agent running backs that I'm willing to kind of go all in on right away. But we have to be a little bit objective here, and we have to go, you know what? They're probably going to bring in another running back, regardless of if it's through NFL free agency or if it's through the NFL draft. James Robinson is not going to see the same amount of touches that he got in 2020. Yes, his efficiency should go up because the overall offense should be more productive, and teams can't necessarily just scheme in against James Robinson. But personally, I would prefer to have a running back that's seeing 25 to 30 touches every single game, even in a very poor offense, that those touches are not going to be too efficient, rather than a running back that's seeing anywhere from 16 touches a game to 18, just because we know volume is king. And if James Robinson doesn't have that guaranteed volume because his contract doesn't dictate it, I think that we have to be a little bit aware of the downside of a James Robinson. All right, so now our next running back is going to be someone that I want to say I don't have him on a single dynasty league. And keep in mind, these aren't dynasty rankings. These are just redraft rankings. But y'all know dynasty is my passion. Dynasty is what I love to talk about. Anyway, David Montgomery, not someone that I ever really believed in. I will say, though, even though we've never drafted David Montgomery in fantasy football, I want to remind everybody that whenever Tariq Cohen got injured in 2020, who was our number one trade target? It was David Montgomery, and that was because we knew David Montgomery was going to be going from a running back that was a first and second down grinder on a poor NFL offense, so someone we want nothing to do with, to then an automatic bell cow running back because they had nobody else to throw the ball to. And if you know about David Montgomery, yes, he has his limitations in his top end speed. He has his limitations in how many long plays you're going to be expecting. He's nothing close to a Derrick Henry. But what you have with David Montgomery is you have someone that can do a little bit of everything. You have someone that can take the workload on first and second downs, and at the same time, he can see targets out of the backfield. So when Tariq Cohen went down, we were all in on buying David Montgomery. But going into 2021, I know David Montgomery last year finished as the running back 8 with 17 points per game. That's not going to be the case. Tariq Cohen is going to be back if you look at that contract. And on top of that, just like we talked about with Antonio Gibson, we have to be a little bit worried about the players that are not on premier NFL offenses. If you're on an offense that we cannot get too excited about for fantasy, then I think we have to lower our expectations on every single player, because if drives are ending early, they're going to see less touches in the red zone. We know the red zone is where the majority of fantasy production comes from. So David Montgomery, I'm expecting his snaps to most likely get scaled back this upcoming season with Tariq Cohen coming back healthy. And on top of that, with him going to be in one of the worst NFL offenses, despite him looking like an absolute fantasy stud down the stretch, I can guarantee you he's going to regress. I mean, if anybody wants to hit my line, hit me on Discord, hit me on Patreon, hit me on Twitter, and go, Mason, you're stupid. David Montgomery is going to match what he was able to do in 2020 with 17 fantasy points per game. I will make a bet with literally any amount of money y'all want. Actually, let me cap it. I'll cap the bet at $2,000. But I am that confident that David Montgomery is not going to come close to his 17 points per game like he saw last season, with some variables changing and with the overall offensive situation being a little bit capped. All right, so now let's go to our next running back, someone that I loved drafting last year, and I'm going to be completely honest, while it looked like it was a good draft pick, I don't like the process behind it, and this is going to be Kareem Hunt. So now y'all know I was advocating to fade Nick Chubb and draft Kareem Hunt in almost every single league last season. But even when Nick Chubb got injured, I was over here saying, hey, Nick Chubb's injured, Kareem Hunt going to be a top 5 running back every game that Nick Chubb misses. Kareem Hunt, one of the best running backs in the entire NFL. We know that he can catch passes. As long as we see a few games without Nick Chubb, he is going to completely smash his ADP. And while he beat his ADP, while he most likely helped you win a few games over expectation, he came nothing close to the overall ceiling that I thought we were having when we were drafting Kareem Hunt. So I'll say that maybe the process looked right, but I think in reality it was wrong, and we just kind of got lucky in a few scenarios, because at the end of the season, Kareem Hunt wasn't necessarily seeing the type of usage you would want. I know everybody's going to go, Mason, you idiot, look at these numbers from the past 4 weeks. Look at what he did against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Guys, please, 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 do not hyper-focus in on a small sample size. That is how 99% of fantasy owners end up losing out on value, how 99% of fantasy owners get a little bit too confident in certain players. So with Kareem Hunt, I know he's very talented. I know he's playing behind a good offensive line, but at the end of the day, he is in a committee with Nick Chubb, and yes, he's the reason why I'm not willing to go out there and spend a top 6 draft pick on Nick Chubb like a lot of other people are. He's the reason that Chubb has a capped ceiling, but Kareem Hunt himself doesn't necessarily have that ultimate ceiling that you would want from a running back in this range, even though, I mean, at this point, there has been a significant drop-off in tiers. All right, so I'm going to be completely honest here. This next ranking at 22 is going to look ridiculous by the time we get to the start of the football season, because this is A, going to be either way too low, or B, be way too high, and it all depends on Aaron Jones. We are going to have A.J. Dillon here with our 22 spot overall for the running back position in 2021. So obviously, y'all know that we talk about A.J. Dillon all the time on the Dynasty channel. A.J. Dillon was someone that I was heavily advising you to trade for halfway through the season in Dynasty Fantasy Football, because Dillon pretty much looks like a poor man's Derrick Henry coming out of Boston College. A.J. Dillon looks like just a monstrous human, actually bigger than Derrick Henry, and has the same athletic profile even though he is bigger than Henry. I mean, absolutely ridiculous if you were just looking at a picture of A.J. Dillon. But we have to acknowledge a few things here. A, we have to acknowledge the fact that it's not a guarantee that Aaron Jones is out of Green Bay. While I think it's likely, it has not happened as of yet. And B, even if A.J. Dillon is going to get the starting job for the Green Bay Packers, we can't necessarily come out here and say right away that he is going to be a running back 1. And that's because he is not necessarily an extremely strong pass catcher. While yes, he can do it, and he proved this with his final season at Boston College, it's not going to be a strength. He's not going to be the next Aaron Jones. He's not going to be seeing 6 targets out of the backfield every single game. And I know some people want to say, but Mason, it's okay. He can be Derrick Henry. He can be Derrick Henry. And while I'll say, yeah, I mean, he can be. It's in his range of outcomes. I know we can get excited about that. It's not likely. Derrick Henry is an outlier. You can't just come out here and automatically project someone to step up into that mold when only one player has been able to do that in the past 10 years. So yeah, A.J. Dillon, I know a lot of people want to compare him to a Steven Jackson. I think that he's a player that's probably going to rise up to being a mid running back 2, or possibly even a high-end running back 2 if we have Aaron Jones out of Green Bay. But if Jones stays in Green Bay, I mean, A.J. Dillon is plummeting down this list. All right, so now our next player, y'all know, was on our hard to fade list going into 2020, Kenyan Drake. Not only did Kenyan Drake disappoint this past season, not only did Kenyan Drake kind of just get completely removed from the receiving game for the Arizona Cardinals, but on top of that, Kenyan Drake is a free agent. Instead of giving Drake a long-term contract, Cliff Kingsbury and this front office decided to go out there and hit Kenyan Drake with the transition tag. So Drake is also a lot older than a lot of people want to kind of expect. A lot of people want to put him in a bucket of that he's a new running back, a shiny new toy, just because Kenyan Drake really has not been talked about a lot since 2019. But if you actually look at Kenyan Drake's age, it's going to surprise you. I mean, he is older than Todd Gurley. I know that is crazy, but it's because he wasted so many of his years in Miami doing nothing. So Kenyan Drake, an older running back that is coming off of a very disappointing season from one of the best NFL offenses, and now we don't necessarily know where he's going to go. Like I said, I think that some people are going to be disappointed when Kenyan Drake gets a very small contract to kind of play a committee/backup role on another team. Like I said, I mean, I would not be surprised if Kenyan Drake finds himself in Jacksonville playing alongside James Robinson. James Robinson seeing about 60% of the touches and Kenyan Drake seeing about 40%. So obviously, after we have that David Montgomery tier, you don't necessarily want to come out and draft any of these running backs, but if we have to pick someone, it's going to be Kenyan Drake, and you're just going to pray that he finds his way back to Arizona. All right, so now our last running back spot here, definitely going to change throughout the course of the offseason. But if we have to rank someone, we are going to be going with Melvin Gordon, another player I wanted nothing to do with this past year. But Melvin Gordon at the end of the season finished as running back 25 in points per game. We know that he is going to be in Denver this following season. And I think the situation in Denver can really only get better. I mean, they had some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL this past season. And I think they have a shot to go out there and possibly get an upgrade over Drew Lock. Maybe, just maybe this is a team that finds its way to getting a David Johnson. And obviously, if that happens, then Melvin Gordon is kind of, I'm sorry, not David Johnson, a Deshaun Watson. And Melvin Gordon would skyrocket up these rankings. That's not likely. I think it is likely, though, that they bring in some quarterback competition, whether that's through free agency, whether that's through trade, getting a player like Jimmy Garoppolo, or the NFL draft. I think the quarterback spot should be upgraded. And we know with Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, opposing defenses just simply aren't going to be able to stack the box against the Denver Broncos. They're going to have to play with two safeties back. So Melvin Gordon, not someone with a ton of upside, not someone with a high floor either. But if you're putting a gun to my head and you're going, Mason, pick a running back 24 here, we are going to be going with Melvin Gordon. Okay, now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. And I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.